Assalamu alaikum, everyone. May peace be upon you. This is Edward Ahmed Mitchell, Deputy Director of CAIR National, coming to you from the city of Atlanta, Georgia. I hope you are all doing well. Please welcome to the Daily Dose, COVID Conversations with CAIR. We, of course, begin with the name of Allah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Again, I'm one of your hosts, Edward Ahmed Mitchell. And I believe we were having some technical difficulties, but Danette, if my co-host, if you are there and you can hear me, then I think we're on the air. Danette, are you there?
Yeah, they try to block me out, but I always find my way back.
You made your way. All right, we failed, guys. Producers, we failed. We couldn't keep Danette out. What are we doing here? We gotta. Thank you, Danette. Please, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, Danette, please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Thank you, Edward. I'm Danette Zagari-Mask. I'm the nonprofit and compliance attorney at CAIR, and it's my pleasure to host this show with Edward. We have a really good lineup for you tonight. CAIR California is going to come on, San Francisco Bay Area immigrants' rights attorney Brittany Rezai, and we also have CAIR's CAIR attorney and litigation legal eagle Gadir Abbas.
That should be his new title, Legal Eagle. I like that, Danette. I want you to introduce me now going forward. I want to see what you come up.
I'll get a good one for you. Okay. And then we're going to round it out with a friend of mine, and a friend of New York City is Shireen Mashallah, Egyptian-American artist and educator, coming to us tonight from New York City in the epicenter, as you all know, of COVID-19.
Absolutely. And we all just heard the news today. You know, President Trump and his team seem to be indicating that things could be getting much worse in the weeks ahead, which is a marked change of tone for him, since he's been insisting that things aren't that bad. So we pray that all of our friends in New York and all around the country are safe. And again, we hope this program will serve as an opportunity for us to educate the public about things they need to know, to highlight the good work that is being done around the country in response to and during this tragedy. And I think, for our guests tonight, Brittany and Gadir, they can highlight for us the fact that the work of CAIR in particular still continues, the work of fighting for civil rights, fighting for justice, and also addressing the new and unique legal problems that have arisen because of this crisis, that their hands are full dealing with that. So let's dive right in. If we could bring in Gadir and Brittany, and we'll begin the interview.
Come on.
Come on in, guys. The water's warm. Lukewarm. No, warm. It's warm. Come on in. All right. I see Brittany coming in.
There she goes. Hey.
We got Brittany.
Hi,
Brittany. Got Gadir. Gadir is muted. Gadir, you look beautiful, but we can't hear your beautiful voice. And that tie is wonderful.
Hey,
just fixing my tie.
Gadir, I can't believe I'm letting you upstage me wearing a tie, and I'm not. This is unheard of.
The whole shoe. I have my dress shoes on as well. So
okay. Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you so much to Gadir Abbas, Brittany Rezai. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I wanted to start by letting both of you, Danette, can we do this? Let them both briefly introduce themselves, tell us a bit about what they do, who they are, their background, and then we'll dive into the questions. Brittany, ladies first, you want to start off, tell us who you are and the great work you do with San Francisco Bay Area Chapter of CAIR.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and thank you, Edward and Danette, for having us. My name is Brittany Rezai. I am an immigrant rights attorney at the CAIR San Francisco Bay Area office. I started out in our office, over 3 years ago now, as a civil rights attorney, and then launched our immigration services about 2 years ago now. So happy to be a part of the CAIR family and to be here with you this evening, and look forward to chatting more.
Thank you, Brittany. Gadir?
Assalamu alaikum. I actually started at CAIR as a CAIR Cleveland intern while I was in law school in 2007. So 13 years later, I help lead our legal team, flying around the country and filing as many lawsuits as we possibly can.
Wonderful, wonderful. Danette has the first question for you, Brittany.
How is it in San Francisco Bay Area? That was one of the first epicenters. What's it like practicing law right now? What's it like running you're running a law firm from your home office, serving your clients. What are some of the biggest issues, the emerging issues that you're seeing right now that are really consuming your time, attention, and talent?
Yeah, great question. As I'm sure we've all experienced, this situation has been developing and changing rapidly. when this all started, I never thought that we would be here and that we'd be all working remotely. But thankfully, our team has for years had the infrastructure ready to work remotely, and we are still able to provide services, and our whole team is able to still be working here in the San Francisco Bay Area just from home, which does complicate things, but we are still able to serve the community. As the San Francisco Bay Area was the first place to sort of to see a rise in cases of COVID-19, it also was the first place to implement a shelter-in-place rule. And we've now had that in place for 2 weeks as of today. And we're hearing reports that it is being effective. So I have hope that both here and around the country and the world, that these measures will help, and that inshallah we'll all be back in the offices soon together.
We would prefer that, right? Yeah,
absolutely.
But
So-
full steam ahead, you're still going. Nothing stopping you. What are some of the the emerging issues, or is there anything new that any new trends that you're noticing?
Yeah, and of course, with COVID-19 coming into place, as an immigration attorney, we've seen travel bans implemented again, more travel bans, right? Unfortunately, President Trump has continued to issue bans from countries, first starting with China and Iran, now the entire Schengen zone out of Europe, as well as UK and Ireland. And so we're seeing community members stuck abroad due to these travel bans that are saying folks who have been in any of these majorly impacted countries in the last 14 days can't enter the United States, unless, of course, a few exceptions. Importantly, they are US citizens or lawful permanent residents. So we're, in addition to the bans, also hearing about flights being canceled, or countries locking their borders, and families not being able to get back together in this time period, or being separated.
Wow. So, Gadir, are you experiencing something similar? You're the national litigation attorney for CAIR National. Normally you'd be in a courtroom this week, probably spread around the country. How is COVID-19 impacting your work? How is it impacting the cases? And are there any unique cases or issues that are coming up as a result of the outbreak?
Yeah, in some ways, it's clearing our calendar of in-court argument. Tomorrow I was set to argue a case before the Fifth Circuit in New Orleans. Next week, I was going to argue a case about religious questioning in Detroit. Last week, we were going to be in LA, where we're co-counseling a case with CAIR LA in court. All those got canceled. And so there is certainly on the civil side, the federal courts are slowly but surely, shutting down and proceeding in every instance in a way that does not require any attorney to be present. The last trip that I took for CAIR was on March 2nd and March 3rd to Arkansas to visit a few folks that we represent, a few Muslim brothers that we represent who are incarcerated in central Arkansas, a little town called Palestine, Arkansas. And you could feel the tension there, with the folks that we met with.
Inside the prison?
Go ahead.
You're talking about inside the prison?
Yeah.
Prisoners.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by tension? Why?
Well, to be incarcerated now is to have as your only lifeline the people that are imprisoning you. And unfortunately, there have been jails and prisons that have taken significant steps, but we've seen in a lot of prisons and jails across the country that we're doing work in that have not taken any steps towards mitigating the spread of coronavirus. In one case, the folks that we represent, each week they get one hotel-sized bar of soap each week, and that's for showers, that's for hand washing. And so, we've been really opposed to that approach, and have pushed officials to do something about it. These prisons and jails are overcrowded to begin with, and the fact that global pandemic threatens their lives is, abhorrent. And it's easy for us, in the free world to think of that problem as distant and far away. But one, they are our brothers and sisters, whatever, they did in the past, whatever led to them being there. And two, prisons and jails are incubators of disease, and most people that are there are, going to come out at some point. You can't hermeneutically seal anybody there. Guards are coming in and out. And so what we're seeing in Rikers Island in New York City, where the rate of infection rivals the hardest hit areas of Italy, the expectation is that that's going to happen at other facilities that don't take this problem seriously. And
that's happening right now.
Yeah.
And I should note that, CAIR National, through our Maryland office, I think sent some advice to the local prison system yesterday that encouraged the prisons start instructing their guards who interact with inmates to wear protective masks so that they're not, reducing the risk they're bringing something outside the prison into the prison, to make sure that, prisoners are able to interact with their family, over the phone, through video more often, if they're not able to do, obviously, physical contact visits, and to obviously reduce the extent to which prisoners are mingling with each other. But it's also a delicate balance, because you don't want a bunch of prisoners locked in solitary confinement, which creates a whole other host of issues. So I know you all are addressing that issue. Jeanette, I know for Brittany,
I want to ask you, I think we're on the same page. We're wondering about detention and ICE, because it's very similar. You also have people who are, can't move about. They're not in the, I think Kadir used the word free world. Is it the same thing? A bar of soap? Are you having to go down there and take care of those?
And also in terms of ICE, is it true, Brittany, that ICE is still running around detaining people during this crisis? I saw one article saying ICE was out on the road detaining people and wearing protective masks while doing it. Any information about that to share?
Oh gosh, yeah, those are two big things. First, to talk about the conditions in ICE detention. They're already historically bad and even worse than our federal and local prison systems, often run by private institutions, not as well regulated, not as much access to counsel, and huge issues happening there. And so we're very concerned that there's going to be major outbreaks at ICE detention centers, and have called for people to be released. Many of these people, this is a form of civil detention, right? These are not necessarily all people who have committed any crime, might have an immigration violation, but not something that we consider a criminal action. So we have, put out calls for people to be released. A court has ordered that there are still children in detention, right? We can't even forget about that piece. And there's reports that children have tested positive for COVID already. So there was an injunction asking children to be released from detention, and these things are going to be really important. So we'll continue to make these calls for people to be released, especially if they're not, in most cases, in many cases, not at a risk to to society. And so what ICE has said is, in regards to whether or not they're currently detaining people, they have said that they are prioritizing enforcement of folks who are criminal or public safety threats. But as we know, historically, ICE doesn't always do what they say. So we certainly hope, we certainly want people to feel, so they've said that they're only going to detain people at this time due to this public emergency that are public safety or criminal threats, and that they're not going to be doing any enforcement at any critical zones like healthcare facilities, hospitals, these sorts of things. So we do want folks who might be at risk of detention to still seek services and feel available to do that. But at the same time, we can't guarantee anything, and ICE has continued to act not in accordance with what they say or what they should be doing. And so we certainly hope they won't be doing, just like you said, Edward, arresting people in protective gear for themselves that are not criminal threats.
Wasting protective gear that we need, you know, targeting people. I mean, it's and it just goes to show you, I think, you know, Danette, Gadir, Brittany, that the work that you all do continues even in a crisis, that, you know, unjust policies don't suddenly come to an end, anti-immigrant bigotry, anti-Muslim bigotry, you know, criminal injustice and the criminal justice system doesn't suddenly end. The work continues, maybe just in a different form, maybe even a more dangerous form. So finally, you know, would each of you like to share some closing words of advice to your fellow attorneys around the country, or even to the community members you serve who may be concerned about everything from their cases to this issue with ICE? You know, anything you want to share before we wrap up? Very, very quick. I'm gonna just sound like one of those news anchors. I'm told give seconds, mere seconds.
Yeah, in times of crisis.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Go ahead, Brittany. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to say, with immigration, there's already been long delays. People have been facing years and years and months of delays in their cases. Unfortunately, it's going to get longer. But we all should be patient and continue to work hard and continue to challenge unreasonable delays. So please, you know, be in contact, seek legal advice if you're seeing those delays, but expect some delays, as many immigration offices have been closed and consulates abroad are closed. So please reach out if we can assist.
Thank you, Brittany. And shout out to your Edie Zahra. Thank you so much, all of you, for the work you're doing. Gadir.
Go with the ditto. I'm going to go with the ditto.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both for joining us so much. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the great work you're doing. Keep it up. And inshallah, we hope to see you all soon, safely and in person. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Danette, who's going to bring on a very special guest for the last segment. Danette's going to run this herself, not because I don't know anything about the subject of art, and but because Danette would be better at this, and I need to pray Maghrib, inshallah. So
that's the real reason, actually.
Yes, but I'm artsy. I know a little bit about art, which is the subject of our next topic.
You know the rule, right, Edward? You get to pray Maghrib, you pray for...
Yes, you and our guest, Shireen. Assalamu alaikum, Shireen. Thank you for joining us. Danette, take it away.
Thank you. One thing I wanted to say before we segue into all of the wonderful topics Shireen is going to address is about the issue with the prisoners. I mean, I know that I went out and I bought antibacterial soaps. I have one about that big for my family. I can't imagine if I was trying to battle COVID-19 with a hospital, or I'm sorry, a hotel size bar of soap, which is, you know, sufficient maybe for two days. So our inshallah, go pray Maghrib, make dua for these brothers and sisters who are not in situations that they can control this outcome. Inshallah, they'll get relief. That's really egregious. I'm so glad.
And our attorneys will fight for that, inshallah.
I'm so glad our attorneys are out there fighting that battle. So now let's segue to a friend of mine, Shireen Suleiman. How are you today? Good. Good. I want to introduce you first. I want to give everyone your bio, if that's okay, because it's an excellent bio. So just bear with me. Shireen Suleiman, Egyptian American artist, educator, advocate, and mother, living in New York City, the epicenter right now of COVID-19, working, teaching. She teaches visual communications and design at both Parsons School of Design and Pratt Institute. She's a community leader, an advocate, and she sits on various boards and councils. She represents and amplifies voices and experiences of Muslim Americans, which is how I got to know Shireen, mashallah. Through the lens of fashion and art, Shireen explores topics ranging from Muslim American identity, cultural diversity and inclusion, social justice, narrative, and representation. So she's the perfect person for us to have on here tonight. I'm so glad that you're with us. Thank you for taking time out. I know that you're teaching. I know that you're busy right now. And first thing I want to just ask you, how are you doing? How are you doing in New York right now?
Well, Jazakallah khair. Thank you so much, Danette. As you mentioned, it was my pleasure and honor to get to know you on a previous planner where we spoke about representation in the media and the power of the image. And so, subhanAllah, I never imagined that we would come together again under these circumstances, but thank you to CAIR for giving us this platform. And yes, indeed. Actually, I'm very grateful as well for the distraction, to be very honest, because living in Queens, I live about 10 minutes or so from Elmhurst Hospital and from sort of, the constant blare of the sirens in the background.
Really?
When we're
Okay.
trying to work. Yeah, it's become something I've been very aware of it. So just this pleasant distraction to talk about something sort of uplifting, something that I'm passionate about and passionate about sharing, that I feel is so empowering for all of us during this time.
You look great. You sound great. Tell us about the arts. Why are the arts important during this time?
So, I mean, Danette, obviously, again, too, we're so grateful for CAIR, for your advocacy, and for the work that you do to represent, so many people in need from the legal perspective. But also, I think that's something that we can all sort of do for ourselves, is try to take this opportunity to explore the arts and to kind of integrate it as part of our wellness practice, right? So we're each sort of having to proactively care for ourselves during this time. For me, I consider the arts to be sort of one of the basic elements of our nourishment. We want to have, emotional nourishment. We want our spiritual nourishment, mashallah, but, our physical, we want to be moving. And so I think that, for me, the arts, I feel, is just another essential aspect of that well care, our ability to connect not only with each other, but to ourselves and within ourselves. The art is our form of, the form of how we're going to be recording and expressing our stories. For better, for worse, this time in history will definitely be remembered. And we can find our power. Our power is how we're going to tell those stories. As you know, the power is in the narrative, right?
Yeah, I learned that.
Yeah, indeed. And so, something that just, I was thinking about today as I was reflecting was, it is said that, when you hear someone with an accent, it's a sign of courage, right? Because they took that leap to be able to find a new way of communicating. Well, for me, art is language. Art is simply language. It's our way that we tell our stories. We can tell our stories. We can, tell ourselves, well, I'm not so creative. I don't have any talent. I'm not an artist.
Yeah.
But we can also use art to interrupt those stories. So art as resistance, art as well care, art as connection.
You have a beautiful, broad definition of art. And so I think that it includes a lot of people who might put themselves out of the category of artist. How can adults right now connect with their creative side? Because, I hear a lot of people say, I mean, I put myself in that category. I'm not an artist. I can't do that. But honestly, I would love to be exploring more of that right now, with my kids, for myself, with my spouse. I mean, I'd really like to explore something, new. And while you're locked down, it's a good time, right? To explore. Yeah. So how do adults do that?
So, I mean, for me, another idea is this idea of sort of democratizing a lot of these ideas and concepts, right? And so creating access and equity. The arts or fashion and all of these are not outside of ourselves. It is something within ourselves that we're using these different channels with which to express, right? So for people who already have an existing art practice, so for someone even like myself, as you well know, so working between two universities, my own teaching practice, managing a home, the advocacy work, for people who have an existing art practice, this is a blessing of time. One could reframe it as a blessing of time. And so I saw something great on social media. Instead of saying I'm stuck at home, I'm now an artist in residence, right? So, so a lot of that power of reframing for people, again, who don't identify as artists, or people who don't have an existing practice, or they have a fear, I just want to invite you to be willing. Be willing, right? And so, this idea of, art being something outside of ourselves, art is simply a way that we express ourselves. And whatever is authentic to us in that moment, it can be collage. When my children were young, we would do sort of these very simple sort of, tile activities or collage activities, anything that's really low stakes, where you're like releasing the idea of what the outcome is, but just sort of in that experience, being willing to experiment, being willing to take advantage of so many resources now that have gone, to be open source. There's drawing classes out there, poetry classes.
You have a website too, right? Can you?
I do. So ShireenSolomon.com.
I was talking over you, so say it slowly.
ShireenSolomon.com.
Okay, and spell that.
ShireenSolomon. So I also have a Facebook page. And so through there as well is where I share resources. I'll be sharing resources with you guys as well. Community resources, educator and student resources, family resources. So a lot of ways for us to stay connected and take advantage of the resources. And, you know, the last thing I just want to say is that we're being honest, not every day is going to be that day where you're just ready to seize the moment. And today's the day I've become an artist. Not, you know, the situation is fluid, the experience is fluid. And so we can also take advantage of just passively receiving the benefits of the art, of the arts and the beauty of the arts. Again, there's so many performances that are online, so many things that we might not have had access to otherwise. We can kind of just sit home and find that place of comfort. And, you know, as a last ditch resort, even just putting on a song. If you're like my mama, you're going to put on Kalsum and you're going to listen and sing along, and you're just going to connect with a place in yourself that brings you comfort and healing.
Yeah. I hate to switch to something that's a little bit of a downer, but realistically, artists in residence or artists all around the country right now, how are they managing from a financial point of view? We're talking about the stimulus package. It's a big topic the past 2 days. I imagine, you know, things have been canceled, you know, on them. What outlets, you know, what is the economic impact been like?
So thank you for asking. Yes, my artist community, my tribe. So I was actually on another call last night with a fellow community organizer, and we're trying to create coalitions and trying to explore and reach out to nonprofit organizations, arts organizations, local community work that's happening, because we know that the ripples and the repercussions are going to be long lasting, and they're going to reach far and wide. And we know historically that, you know, the knee-jerk reaction, you know, when we look at budgets, is we're still, in my opinion, having that problematic thinking of, you know, thinking that the arts are still that luxury. That's the first thing that can go, that's not one of the essential aspects of a budget. But for me, the irony is that in this time of COVID quarantine, you know, I look around and I think we all agree that in the end, we realize who the essential workers are. And when we're all stuck within the four walls of our home, and I'm kind of like in my small apartment in New York City, and I'm relying on the performances, the artists, the DJs, the singers, the dance, like everything that I'm kind of using to kind of sort of get myself through day by day, something to look forward to, those stories. So I'm hoping, you know, that we'll start to understand that the arts and that programming are simply an extension of our community, our schools, our village.
So I'd love to hear a personal story. If you don't want to go personal, just tell me. but something where art has really helped you through a difficult time, you know, that you really can say that. I mean, of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know, he decrees things and he gets us through things, and he never gives us anything more than we can bear. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
He gives us tools. He gives us art. He gives us people like you. Can you really look back, I mean, on times when really art was your lifeline?
I mean, I can tell you that, you know, one story, the first story that came to mind, I don't know if it's a lifeline per se, but I'll tell you actually that for many years, you know, I worked in fashion for so many years, and it came a point where I moved to the digital aspect of design. And so even though I had gone to design school and I started off in apparel, and I was very strong always as an illustrator, and it was something that I loved so much for many years, you know, the bread and butter and, you know, making ends meet, and my profession and my specialization moved to the digital space. It had been so many years. It came to pass that between, you know, having children and starting a family and life, it was a long time actually. I had quite a bit of a gap before I was, you know, really able to kind of pick up a pencil again and pick up some watercolors and get my hands dirty again and make art with traditional media. I still love my iPad. I still love, you know, to be very honest, I think I don't want to brag, but I'm kind of a big deal on Zoom. So I was already very comfortable with like the technology aspect of everything. But a few years ago, when I was asked and brought on to start teaching illustration again and fashion drawing, and reconnecting with that aspect of myself, I think that I learned a lot about myself. I had stopped identifying myself
as an artist
that way. And we learned that, you know, so that part is not, you know, that those parts were never lost. So the part of you when you were younger and a child and feeling sort of more carefree, those parts aren't lost. So maybe, subhanAllah, this could be an opportunity, you know, to reconnect.
I appreciate you so much. I'm so grateful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala crossed our paths. And I really want to thank you for giving us this time. It means a lot to our community. And I hope that everybody goes and checks out your website, ShireenSuleiman.com, because I know they're going to find some great resources out there. You're a beautiful person. Mashallah, you really, really inspire me. And really thank you so much for giving us this opportunity and just being with us tonight. And I hope everybody, I'm sure everybody who tuned in really enjoyed it. So
I hope so. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair, Dina. Thank you so much. And like I said, again, thanks to CAIR for offering this lifeline to our community as well. Thank you so much.
and we'll see you next time, inshallah.
Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Just some parting thoughts. We did pretty well. We're on time tonight. I want to remind you all, speaking of websites, to please go to CAIR.com, www.cair.com, CAIR.com. It's right there in the middle. It says sign up for our newsletter. Do that. You're going to get a lot of great information. It's a good source of a variety of information. There's a donate button there. Hit the donate button. Some people are falling on hard times, so obviously not speaking to everybody, but we are expanding our services. Mashallah, we're rising to the occasion. Not only are we covering the needs that we already absorb and take care of day to day because of donor support, but actually we're expanding. We're providing more resources. So if you are in a position, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed you, I encourage you to hit that red donate button. Right now, CAIR has a great article on its homepage. I want to bring to your attention steps to take if you lose your job to coronavirus. I think that's really pertinent. So if that's something that you are going through, I encourage you to go on our homepage and look at that. Like our Facebook page, like this video if you liked it, and click to set alerts so that you can continue to get it. We're exploring how to maybe get on Instagram. My sons told me that they don't watch the show because it's not on Instagram. It's to also bring in our younger viewers. So we're really looking forward to that. But please stay tuned again every night, 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's why it's called the Daily Dose. Continue to bring your questions to us. We're actively looking for experts, the best experts to answer them. And we're also sourcing our own experts. We have so many within the CAIR family and bringing them to you nightly. So inshallah, we'll see you tomorrow night, again, 8 p.m. Eastern time. Come to Facebook or link to us through Zoom. Everyone have a good night, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.